Hi, I'm Shawna Brown, and I'm a partner in the elder law department here at Mandelbaum Barrett. So, a question that I've seen circulating a lot lately is asking, can you use ChatGPT or a similar AI platform to do your will or estate planning documents? So, the short answer is no, that's not a good idea. Listen, ChatGPT is great. I think we all use it now. I use it, personally to help plan a vacation or plan what I'm going to eat that week. But for something as serious as your will or your estate planning documents, not the greatest idea, probably. And in fact, ChatGPT validated that opinion for me because I actually entered some information into ChatGPT, kind of pretending I wanted to do a will. And it says, this is a general template for educational purposes and is not a substitute for advice from an estate planning attorney. And then it goes on to say that there's specific requirements for doing estate planning documents that may affect your plan that ChatGPT may not know. So, you know, ChatGPT might sound like a good idea to prepare a document, but with a closer look, it's clear that it doesn't provide the nuance and questions and fact checking that an attorney can do. So, estate planning is a highly personal process that is tailored towards you and your family's needs. So, those needs could include things like a complex family dynamic. Maybe you have a blended family where there's multiple marriages and kids from multiple marriages. Maybe you have a child who is a spendthrift, who's not good with money, and you want to have protections in place so they're not squandering their inheritance. Maybe you have a disabled child who may need trust planning so that they can preserve their government benefits. Or you may have a complex family dynamic that is something like, you want to disinherit a child or treat children differently in your will. If you're a high net worth person, you might need to engage in very careful tax planning. Other people might be interested in trust planning for creditor protection. So, what I'm getting at here is that ChatGPT can take some information and spit out a document, but it's not really going to ask you follow-up questions that an attorney would to understand why are you doing what you're doing, making recommendations for better planning, understanding, you want to disinherit that relative. Why do you want to do that? Do you understand the implications of doing that and what could happen? ChatGPT just isn't going to ask you why you're doing what you want to do and discuss those potential future implications. So, like I said, I kind of did a test in ChatGPT with just kind of general facts. And, I think I said something like, I'm a person who has children from a first marriage. I'm married to my second spouse. That person doesn't want to be my executor. And ChatGPT spit out some information, but there's no advice or guidance given about who the executor should be if my spouse doesn't want to do it. It kind of spits out some general options, but it doesn't, say maybe there are certain trust planning you should do to, preserve assets for your kids, but also to benefit your spouse. Those are the more nuanced things that an attorney is going to do. Let's say in that scenario I just said where there's a blended family, maybe the spouse doesn't want to be the executor of the estate. And maybe ChatGPT says, well, name your daughter. Well, what if she's 18 or 19 years old and you have a complex estate? That's going to be a really difficult task for a very young person to do. That's another thing that an attorney would point out is, hey, I see you've named an 18-year-old in this role. Do you want to consider another relative who's older and perhaps has more life experience? ChatGPT is not going to do that. Another thing that AI and ChatGPT can't do is to coordinate your entire overall asset plan. Attorneys look at your estate as a big picture. People who have assets, have probate assets, which are things that you own individually in your own name that don't have a joint owner or a named beneficiary. And then people have non-probate assets, which don't pass according to your will, but have named beneficiaries or joint ownership on them. So the idea is that an attorney can look at the two different kinds of assets and try to coordinate a cohesive estate plan. But ChatGPT, if you just say, make me a will, it's not going to go through that analysis. Another important consideration is that estate planning is very state specific. States have different rules for how you have to have the documents executed or certain provisions you need to have. For example, if you're trying to do a power of attorney, there's certain language that New Jersey needs to have for that to be honored. So ChatGPT is not necessarily going to tell you, oh, this is good for New Jersey or New York or Florida or wherever you are. So it's really important to get further advice on the state specific forms. It's really important to keep in mind that in estate planning, everything's very exact and a little error can mean a big consequence. So ChatGPT may miss these little nuances that are important that an attorney would spot. ChatGPT also has security risks. So certainly, if you're plugging in personal information like people's names or addresses, there's always the chance that that could end up in the wrong hands. Now, is ChatGPT a total waste when it comes to estate planning? I don't necessarily think so. I think that a lot of people who are considering an estate plan are intimidated by the topic and don't really know what to ask. And I do think that maybe entering not personal information, but just a general concept of what you want into ChatGPT, that might produce results that give you some questions to ask the attorney, to say, oh, I thought maybe I should ask about this or this or this. It might give you a springboard. And it might help you organize your thoughts during the meeting. But I think overall, it's clear that although AI is, a growing field and it can be useful in some instances, this is still a highly personal and nuanced area of the law that, people really need advice on. So here at Mandelbaum Barrett, we're always happy to help you with your estate planning needs.